Dzongsar Rinpoche from all of us here present now. And on behalf of the whole, all of us here today, we wish to really welcome you. And we're almost 400 people here in the Conway Hall. And we're all brought together here out of an interest to hear you speak on the chosen topic of the day. So we look forward to hearing all your thoughts and advice. Thank you.
I'm happy to be here in the ethical society. There has been lots and lots of questions and I don't know, expression. I've been going through, I've never ever looked at computer screen this much in my life. I think I will get a 10, but thinking this is kind of an important. I put some effort. I'm afraid I can't really cover everything. I will try to in my 2 talks. Also, many of the subjects are some of the most important and profound and deep and Tantric, generally Buddhism and especially Tantric philosophy. So it's going to be difficult. It's something you cannot discuss for a few hours and come to a conclusion. So I want you to know that. I'm not going to pretend that we don't have an issue. We don't, definitely, there is an issue, there is a problem that Rigpa is facing. Not actually, I would say, even Vajrayana. And I'm sure some of you have read this Newsweek article recently, just a week ago, is it? And there was somebody made a comment about this. It's very interesting, but I think it's good that you know. See, so many gadgets. Somebody who made comment about this says, "It is unfortunate that the Tibetan Tantric and the Japanese Tantric disguise themselves under the name of Buddhism, but actually practice sexual rituals which completely deviates from the teachings of the Buddha, etc., etc." And then he also goes on saying, how wise British professor Lawrence Weddell, who conducted quite comprehensive research on Tibet he wrote the following passage 100 years ago: "For Lamaism is only thinly and imperfectly varnished over the Buddhist symbolism, beneath which the sinister growth of polydemonist superstition darkly appears." And there's more. But not just 100 years ago, actually. Vajrayana Buddhism always had controversy. It's nothing new. Lot of reasons. Of course, as always, there's a Vajrayana Tantra and there's a Tantrika, the person. And people always, not everybody behaves. Tantrikas are not always perfect. Even though Vajrayana, the Tantra itself is, from my point of view, from some of our point of view, is perfect. Tantrikas misbehaves. Not all, but some. And they create a lot of damage. But not only that, Tantra, the teaching of the Vajrayana, itself is really, it's difficult to chew, it's difficult to swallow, it's a really tough in one way. It's very avant-garde. So, and to listen and to hear the Tantric teaching, you have to sort of stay out of a box, out of a certain zone. I'm going to be a little bit, I don't know, maybe it's ethically wrong to do, but I'm going to use an example, and I'm going to use a Hindu Tantra. Okay. In the Hindu Tantra, so-called Hindu, by the way, just make a note that there is no such thing as a Hinduism. I'm sure many of you know this word created by Abrahamic people. In the Hindu Tantra, when Shiva first was requested by his consort Parvati that to teach Tantra, Shiva refused, and finally Shiva, and this is one version, by the way, you know, how the Indian stories, so many versions. And Shiva said, okay, you know, you have to be in union with me, because only when you are in love, when you are in this love, deep love, then you will be able to hear the Tantric teaching. Because, and it makes kind of in a twisted way, some strange sense here. Because I'm sure many of you, one way or another, you must have fallen in love. And when you are in love, suddenly all rational and logic collapses. Doesn't it? Even the most ardent, vicious, critical, scientific, scientist, you understand? When they fall in love, the most smelly thing can turn them on. Things that they do, the most irrational, I don't know, whatever, different point of view. I'm just giving you an example. So Tantra always had controversies, nothing new. One of the most important person in Buddhism is Chinese monk Xuanzang, who, without him, we would have never ever known where Bodh Gaya is today. It's thanks to him, that's why we know where Bodh Gaya is, where Lumbini is, so on and so forth. He's a very important person for Buddhism. But even he said in his life story, when he was a total devout Mahayana practitioner, and I guess he must have encountered during those days in Afghanistan some tantric teachers and practitioners, and he made very interesting comments like, this so-called these tantric people who claims they're Buddhists, they suddenly fly, and then but us Buddhists, we don't care about this kind of magic and superpower, do we? Because we actually really want to understand the truth, so on and so forth. So it's not that Professor Weddell has found out something new 100 years ago. It's been always there. And meanwhile, Tantric people, we not only have the burden to try to prove that the Vajrayana is the teaching of the Buddha, not only to the Mahayana, we not only have this burden to prove ourselves as a Buddha's teaching, but we have to accept Mahayana as the teaching of the Buddha. Because without the Mahayana, there is no tree. Tantra is like a fruit and a flower. There's no tree. Not only that, we have to accept Sarvakayana as the teaching of the Buddha, because that is the root. So, there is definitely a controversy. And even today, recently published Tricycle, Stephen Batchelor, he said, how are we to understand such accounts of Guru devotion? He's talking about Telopa and Naropa. Am I to believe that the story of Telopa and Naropa actually took place? Can I imagine Buddhist societies in India or Tibet that did not object the religious teachers behaving in this way, etc., etc.? I hear this sort of a, I don't know, little bit of a taste or I don't know, connotation of that. Maybe the Telopa and Naropa is some sort of a mythological thing. It's not it's a legend, it's a story, it never happened. Well, you know, I can't really argue too much. You know, if we really want a scientific, so-called objective, and I would really stress this so-called objective, because the Western academia so crazy about objectivity, right? Objectivity, I always have a problem with it. Anyway, so-called objective, scientific proof, and a little bit of a colonial attitude in there. If you really insist on that, I don't think all Buddhists can prove that Buddha actually came. You know, Indians were never really good with keeping records. Chinese were really good. Indians, not only they were bad at keeping records, they love putting zeros, extra zeros. I don't know, it's probably the sound of sitar and I don't know, all this poetic stuff. They, you know, it's something that like even when I was growing in my childhood days, my teachers never liked me to make notes. They said that making notes is what the lazy people do. You need to learn by heart. So, you know, the tradition of learning by heart. So they discourage you making notes. It has its good side sometimes, but we realize, you know, there's also now we realize there's some disadvantage in this. I think the reason why there is this kind of problem, like, you know, Mr. Wattles and bachelors and Xuanzangs, is because I think Vajrayana is really it is something that is so advanced is not the right word. I don't know. It's very raw. It's really, really raw. It should have never been, you know, spoken outside. I mean, in the original source country, they did quite a good job in India. You know, one guru, maybe 2 or 3 students, you know, one somewhere in a cemetery or a bar or inside a forest or on the top of the mountain or inside a cave. All this thing happened. You know, they kept it really quiet. And then went to Tibet. And then that's where everything began to fall apart, I feel. But, you know, in Tibet, in one way, everybody is kind of a Buddhist. And sort of, you can say they're sort of a Vajrayana follower. So I guess there was not so much challenge somehow. Vajrayana has a really, for instance, the teachings of the Shunyata, the style and method of teaching the Shunyata is really raw, in a really complete raw form. I mean, only in the Vajrayana you hear expressions like solution and the problem are one. I was talking this morning. By the way, there's so many Buddha's teachings, not just Vajrayana, so many. 83,999 to be exact. There's so many. And as a path, when we talk about a path, you always talk about the problem and the solution and how to apply the solution to the problem, isn't it? Where there is a clear distinction between the problem and the solution is what we call causal path. And where there is a less and less and less and less gap between so-called the solution and the problem, then the teaching becomes more complicated. And in the Vajrayana, the solution and the problem are one. This is why you hear words like emotion as wisdom. You almost never hear expressions like samsara and the nirvana is one, really directly in the raw format. Even though in the Mahayana, in the teachings of the Shunyata, there are, very direct teachings, but in the Vajrayana, it comes in the very, very raw form. And then when we, for instance, and then even in the technical level, because the view is so raw, even the technique can be very raw. For instance, only in the Vajrayana, technique of not just visualization. Visualization is a very, very diluted, watered down word. In fact, having the confidence of yourself being the Buddha. No need to change anything, just as it is, right now. These kind of expressions are really difficult to chew for. So self, person as a deity. Your body aggregates as the deity's mandala. These are not that easy to chew. And the world as a celestial mansion or the mandala also. And we call it Doyon Lamchir, which means pleasurable objects, so-called distracting objects. Take them as a path instead of having animosity towards them, instead of looking down at them as some sort of a temptation and some sort of a, devil's incarnation. Taking them as a path. And then also, on the action level, we call it Tulju Gichepa, which means acting totally genuine, without any posing or pretending or fabricating or sugarcoating or anything, just as it is. Stuff like this is difficult. It's really difficult. And, when I think deeply, even though at the moment the Tibetan Lamas are doing the teaching job for, this Tantra in many parts, I really wonder how much the Tibetan mind actually really can understand this non-duality, this kind of raw non-duality. Tibetans have a lot of Confucius influence from China. Tibetans have a lot of Brahmanical, sort of Indian, sort of hierarchical and, what do you call it, caste, influence from India. And it's very evident if you look at the Tibetan without your, what do you call it? If you look at with the naked eyes, without, all the other filter, it's very much there within the Tibetan society. There's that, a lot of that. And the Chinese, as I mentioned, there's a lot of Confucius, what's the right, the patriarchal, the leader, all of that. And then India, well, probably India, even though it's waning now, India probably has still a little, there is a cultural sort of setup. And this is maybe really bad example, but I read an article, newspaper article, long time ago. In Delhi, the government of Delhi organized a special police force whose only job is to catch rats, because Delhi had so much rats, and it was really problematic. So after something like 6 months, with something like 1,000 police, they only caught 2 rats. This has got nothing to do with the Indian inefficiency, by the way. You may be thinking this. They found out not many police wants to catch rats. Why? Because rat or the mouse happen to be the bride of the Ganesh, the Lord Ganesh, the wealth deity. So even when we talk about the Ganesh, Indians never even think, how is this possible? A rat as small as this, and then the elephant, fat, big, riding small mouse will be dead right away with the weight of the elephant. They don't think like this. And I remember once I took a flight from Delhi to Kerala, and the plane was full of, what do you call them? Harijan, we call them... No. It's a not eunuch, transgender. Hi. Intersex? Oh, okay. These days I'm paranoid. Not that I will not use a correct word. But I think you know what. So at the plane full, I was the only one, and they all were dressed so beautiful. Then I was so surprised. Because, I was so surprised, and I had to ask one of them, what are you guys, where are you going? And then this person told me that, they were being invited by a very, very wealthy family whose daughter is getting married, and their holy substance, they will bless the marriage. Because in India, they are also considered really bad and, look down at them as a bad omen. Hijra, right? And so here you go. Something that is bad today, tomorrow, there's something good. So it really fits in their mind, I think. So it's going to be quite interesting how generally Buddhism, and especially Mahayana, and most especially Vajrayana Buddhism, how it will really swim across the European, American, Abrahamic, Protestant mind, how it will go through. There's something to think about these things. But anyway, I should go back to our subject, the future of Buddhism, right? Not only future of Buddhism, future of all spiritual path is, I don't know, is it in a difficult situation? Maybe, maybe not. Volatile, yes. But volatile can be really good, like a financial volatile situation. You can make a lot of profit out of this if you are smart, how to catch the moment. Volatile can be good. Is it bad? Not necessarily. But yes, lots of spiritual paths are becoming very materialistic. So spiritual materialism is also very, very strong. But it has always been kind of strong ever since, Genesis. If you are talking specifically about future of Buddhism, I'm a Buddhist. I would say it only depends on the merit of sentient being. Can't do much. Yes, you can study, you can analyze, you can do all these things. But at the end of the day, the merit. I know some of you may think that I'm this, religious person talking, but if you don't have a merit, and especially a group merit, you won't have a good prime minister. You won't have whatever. The merit is a very, very important factor here. So, future of Buddhism, I think merit will play a very important role. And then we are talking about challenges and opportunities. Challenges? Yes. There's a lot of challenges. I think there's so many challenges. One of the main challenge is not having good teacher, not having enough teacher, should I say? Yeah, someone who can teach. And even if we have teacher, we also know that there are many teachers, especially among the Tibetan teachers. There are so many teachers who are not really qualified, especially in the Vajrayana, not qualified Vajrayana masters, so-called masters. We know very well there are so many tulkus, lamas, rinpoches who indulge in so many bad behaviors and harm students, harm the Dharma, Buddha Dharma, and burn the seed of, inspiration from innocent people. And this is a big problem. There's no dispute with this. And I am not defending any of them. We should not. In fact, I have been kind of, I don't know, maybe, I have my own sycophants following me, you understand? And I usually vent this, and I also have written about it. Sometimes it got me into trouble also. But this is the situation. We have, as I said, we have teachers, but many teachers don't even try to understand the culture and the society whom they are trying to teach. Teachers are supposedly like a doctor, and a student is like a patient. Dharma is like supposedly medicine. And if the teacher is not even trying to understand the patient's history and the sickness and all of that, then there's definitely a problem. And there is a really, I've been talking, I don't want to repeat too much, I've been talking about this in 3 other places. Basically, teachers really not trying to understand the culture. Even language. I have to say, I'm a good example. English is not my, first language. Actually, I came to study English here, but really, I wasn't studying much. Instead, I don't know whether it happens these days. There's something called National Film Theatre, right? Still exists? Okay. At 10 in the morning sometimes, until 11 at night. One after another. That's when my cholesterol went up, I think. Fish and chips and all of this. But, I just, realize, for instance, my own English, I've been using the word alleged in some of the, when we were talking about the current issue, and it's a wrong, usage of the word, which I now accept. So there is so many challenges, and this is one really big one, and it's going to be a difficult one, because this is going to take some time to have some sort of a communication and learning and a realization. And then we are talking about opportunities. Yes, we have a lot of opportunities. That we do. First of all, Buddha said, in the degenerated time, in the future, even if a person can keep one single vow, or if a person can meditate, a moment or two every month, even if a person can think of love and compassion and bodhicitta, once a month, the Buddha himself said there is an equal amount of impact to those students who think about love and compassion and the renunciation and all of that all day, all night during his time. Because that, I guess, you can see during those days there was no WhatsApp. And a lot of challenge, Facebook and stuff like that. There's a lot of, challenge for sitting and practicing. And especially in the Vajrayana, the Tantric master said right from the beginning that in the degenerated time, Tantra is going to be more potent, more, decisive, quick, and more blessing. So this is why I was asking the Rigpa Sangha this morning. It's now that the students of the Rigpa Sangha must, think big, be courageous, be resilient, and have the right motivation. Really, right motivation. Not just to sort of prove a point or, but enlightening sentient beings, that, for that you need to do a lot of things. And what is it? It's, challenges and opportunities for Buddhism in the modern world. Yes, opportunities during the modern world. Modern world actually doesn't scares me. It's because what is modern world? One of the, character, if you like, about modern world is you have more, access, or you have more, know-how on being analytical and critical. And also, the modern people pride ourselves that we are the follower of reason, not just blind belief. And modern people also, we cherish, I'm my own boss. Who else is my boss? All this fits in very well with Buddhism. So well, especially Vajrayana Buddhism. I know some of us here who don't have much information on Vajrayana Buddhism may be a little bit puzzled, but very much so also with the Vajrayana Buddhism. For instance, like Buddha, he was a revolutionary. He went against hierarchy, caste system. So, what is happening nowadays with the Rigpa situation? We could really turn this into an opportunity. If students find their teachers not behaving well, yes, they should speak out about this. Of course, whenever there's anyone genuinely, harming others, especially if it is coming from someone who is in the sort of a higher position, it's really important to speak out about these things and not to protect this kind of hierarchical system. The Vajrayana, from generally all Buddhism, Mahayana and Vajrayana included, there is not a single Tantric text where it says the Tantric master can harm others. No, none. A Tantric master, what should a Tantric master, not just master, all practitioner, all Tantric practitioner is always doing three things. They are practicing Sharvaka, Mahayana, and the Vajrayana all together. A tantric, one cannot become a tantric practitioner if you don't take refuge. The fundamental vow of the what a refuge vow is not to harm others. You have to do that. And then, in the Tantra, bodhicitta is like the heart and the soul. It's like the eyes. Not only not harming the others, you have to help others. On top of that, if you are a Vajrayana practitioners, and especially master, you have to have a pure perception. And this is interesting. I've been really telling that. We've been hearing a lot about, pure perception to the guru, but you are not hearing enough about pure perception to the student. Okay, one thing. I'm going to just speak whatever comes in my head. So it's not going to be, I made some notes just because I don't want to miss some of the questions and all of this, but it's not going to be too, cohesive. So please, you'll have to kind of, anyway, you will re-edit in your mind, but, I was talking about how Buddha was a revolutionarist. He went against hierarchy. And I want to say this. Guru is got nothing to do with the hierarchy. Vajrayana Guru, Vajrayana Master. And, I have to thank Rigpa. This, I haven't been teaching so much in the West, publicly like this, and because of this situation, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about what we, as a Tibetan, we overlook. Like this one. There's always this sort of a taken for granted kind of attitude that guru is higher than the student. No. If you are talking about a Vajrayana master and a Vajrayana guru-student relationship, hierarchy doesn't exist. Hierarchy is the dualistic thing. It doesn't exist. So important to know. But I understand. There's a gesture of, respecting to the master, sitting low like this, and then having a better cushion, and then water, and all of this. This is a tantric student's personal choice if they want to do this. And there's so many evidence for this. I know someone like Stephen Batchelor might say this is just another legend, but like Saraha, who was a dean of Nalanda University. And Nalanda University is big. It's like as big as University of London. I went there, So I need to mention this a bit. I didn't finish, by the way. All because of NFT, National Film Theatre. And he had his own, this is a big university. But he had his own Vajrayana master, secretly, somewhere, not in the Nalanda University. And it was she, master, part-time prostitute, part-time arrow maker. Hierarchy, yeah. Another thing is, this is where the Tibetans are culprit. And I want to talk more maybe later, or maybe I may forget, so I will just mention here. Head of a monastery and the guru is a two separate thing. But it got intertwined, I know. You understand what I mean? All this head of so this is why I question head of a charitable foundation, head of a public whatever, public organization. That role, I'm not saying, theoretically can be done both, but it's like, I think I've been thinking about how a person can do both. I think there's a really good way, actually. But anyway, these two are separate entity. Vajrayana master and the student is a personal choice. It's between head of a public fund or whatever. That's a secular thing. And this got mixed up. Quite. But anyway, I want to say that nowhere in the Vajrayana text there's a mention that Guru can do whatever they like. They can beat up whoever they like. They can do whatever they like. Nowhere. Yes, there is a mention that a Vajrayana student must have a total pure perception to this person who you have chosen consciously after a lot of analysis. That is your chosen practice. These two are different things. Oh, by the way, this, I think there's some questions. So in other places, I did sort of the summary and then have the questions and answer later asked. But I think what we will do is we will do it in between also. So hopefully you get, maybe, wait. What I want to say is this. We are going to talk about this quite, hopefully we will touch to this subject. When we talk about these things, I think it's important we keep in two things in our mind, which is two perspectives, I would say. One is sort of the worldly perspective, and then there's, how should I say, sort of spiritual perspective, but more in the Vajrayana level, I would say individual practice perspective from the point of view of genuine Vajrayana practitioner. Okay. This is actually one of the most unique things about basically the Indian philosophy, and especially in Buddhism. The Buddhist teachings always comes in the form of relative truth and ultimate truth. Absolutely important. I think this is again another, what do you call it? Miscommunication or not enough communication. So much so that recently I actually talked about this, and then I said, there are times that when Buddha taught, he did not really meant it. It's so difficult to express these things. Then I categorize them as a Cinderella teachings. He did not really meant it, but for a purpose he taught that. And this teaching, somehow the people misunderstood me as saying that I denigrate them. Absolutely not. I cannot denigrate relative truth. And this is interesting because in the subject here it says, what dangers are inherent in the rejection of some Buddhist teachings such as rebirth and karma? Like a rebirth is a very important subject. Nowhere in any sutras of the Shastras, Buddha taught that rebirth exists ultimately. Show me one. If you can find one, I will miss the next match. None. Teachings such as relative truth, karma, samsara, nirvana, all these are expedient teaching, very, very important teaching, yet it is not the absolute teaching. I think in the Western mind, absolute is cherished, I have a feeling. It's more like, oh, it's the ultimate, the absolute. Relative truth is sort of looked down. I don't know, somehow I feel that. If you don't, good. Because we are not looking down at relative truth, we are not looking up to ultimate truth. In fact, these two are, there is no such thing as ultimate truth, without, the relative truth. So this is important. So in Buddhist teachings, there are a lot of teachings where Buddha taught how one should not harm anyone, no matter in what conditions. He taught, as I said, reincarnation. He taught, love and compassion. And also, nowhere Buddha taught you can violate the laws and the rules and the regulations of some country. Nowhere. I will tell you a very good example. Okay, monks, those who are ordained, monks in the Vinaya. Many people think monks' vow gets destroyed, disrobed by having a sex with a woman or some man, whatever, right? That's how many people think. That's how the monk's vow gets damaged or destroyed. Yes, but that's not the only one. You know what Buddha said? And I will give you as an example. If an ordained monk download a software without paying, finished, monk's vow. And this is very much happening. Nobody even pays attention to this. Okay, I need to define this a little bit. What would be the minimum cost of a lunch in London? £2? What? No, 5. Okay. So if a software, if it is, let's say, £5. If the software cost £6, monk's vow is finished. So I just want to tell you that it's not that, the Buddhist teachings never look down at these rules and regulations and laws of the relative conventional truth, because conventional truth is so important. Wait. But as much as the conventional truth is important, the view, the ultimate view, and therefore the path to this ultimate view is also very, very important. So I don't know how to put this into example. It's almost like, yes, you need a rug, but you also need someone to pull the rug out continuously. And this is a sort of the path. sort of, if you like. And I think this is really important. This understanding is fundamentally important to not to forget for the future survival of tradition, the Buddhist tradition or the Buddhist teachings. But I know it's difficult. It's really difficult. Every time when we talk about transcendence, every time we talk about ultimate truth, then immediately people end up having misunderstandings. Every time we talk about all these, the path of transcendence, like deities, what do you call it? All perceptions are deity, all sound as a mantra, all thoughts are wisdom, pure perception to the Guru. When we talk about this, I think somehow it gets interpreted as, oh, the Vajrayana people are not really addressing the conventional issue. You understand what I'm saying? So when you talk about the transcendence and the ultimate sort of teachings of the Vajrayana, it gets interpreted or misheard as we don't care about, people who have gone through the suffering and all of that, which is not true. But what I'm trying to say is it's also important you don't lose that sort of transcendence path. I've been saying, even meditation, what do you want to do with your meditation? Do you want to transcend samsara and nirvana? Then you follow a proper path. Do you want to have a good sleep and, good life management? Then there's a lot of good app, mindfulness app. This is a choice you have to make. What time is it? 4:05. Maybe do you want to ask some questions? Yeah.
From what I gather, listening to your talks, Rinpoche, so long as there is consent between a student and a Vajra master, whatever happens is okay. Is this what you meant?
As long as what?
As long as there is consent between a student and a Vajra master, whatever happens is okay. Is this what you meant?
Yes, but we have to really be careful here, because this consent or all this need to be really explained. Actually, this leads to what I wanted to say. As I was saying, anything transcendence is really difficult to understand. For instance, I will get back to the main question, but pure perception to the Guru, even though it has become a very, very touchy subject now, I guess because it has something to do with the Guru as one person. But have you ever thought about this? I've talked about this in other places also. Okay, let's say you are not a Vajrayana practitioner. You don't want to practice Vajrayana because it's too, as Mr. Waddle said, devil worshipping, whatever. Let's say you choose the Mahayana path. Have you thought about this? Your compassion has to be unconditional. Can you even do that? Let's say Forget the Vajrayana, pure perception towards the Guru. You know, I wake up every morning and I go to BBC. Somewhere inside me, there is a very strange hope that there is breaking news, Trump impeached. There is that judgment. There is that kind of, like dislike towards him. It's difficult. Pure, let's not talk about pure perception. Let's talk about compassion. Compassion to one, forget all sentient beings. One person. What? You say, I will have compassion to this person only if he or she behaves. In fact, in the Mahayana, we are told that if the person does not behave, you have to have more compassion. So it's difficult. Okay, Mahayana, not for me. Let's go to Sharvakayana. Really? Renunciation? Okay, renunciating something that you already don't want to get rid of, probably like a job and stuff like this. But, and also, maybe it's easy to renounce Rolls-Royce. Anyway, it's, maintenance is high. But, renouncing certain things like, I don't know, pension plan, I don't know, insurance, I don't know, ideology, liberal ideology. Did you hear that? Okay. It's difficult. You can't, so even the Sharvakayana is not that easy. But I understand, compassion to all sentient beings sounds good. And it really works well if you are in a sort of a public forum. Wow, talk about compassion, but Guru devotion, that smells. It's not something that you don't. And that's why I said, this should not be talked about in the public. In the public, it's really nice to talk about, compassion to all sentient beings. How many times have you been to World Peace Forum? Isn't it nice? The peace for the world and stuff like saving the planet and all of that. Most of the people who try to save the planet, they take a hot shower. It's very difficult. So I think the consent, going back to the consent, really, what is being consented, so to speak? Yeah, I don't know whether there's such a word. That need to be clearly. This is why in the Tantric text there is mention of how a Tantric master must teach Vabheshika, Svatrantika, Chittamata, Madhyamika before he was given the teachings of the Vajrayana. It's there. Do you want to go to our next question?
What is meant by skillful means and crazy wisdom?
Should we take a break? Maybe like 10 minutes break? What do you think? 10 minutes, okay. Okay, so just want to carry on a little bit about this path in relation to, guru, student, all of this. I think, as has been advised by our masters, motivation is the real crucial thing here. And I guess you say that our motivation is to achieve enlightenment. But what is really enlightenment? I think this is what the students also need to learn. What is that? It should not be misunderstood as a state of happiness. So important. When we define the Buddhist view, meditation, action, and the result, the Buddhist view are the 4 seals, which I'm not going to go through. Buddhist meditation or Buddhist practice must always eventually or right away go against the duality. And the Buddhist behavior has to be non-extreme. Now the Buddhist result, enlightenment, how do you define that? The Buddhist result is never something to get. It's never something to get. Even the word Buddha has the connotation of awakening, eliminating the sleep, eliminating the darkness, eliminating the delusion. So it's really, this is quite important. And as easy as it sounds, it's not going to sink into our habitual system, because we always look for some sort of a happiness many times. And of course it doesn't help when, especially on the relative teachings, such as when teachings like a Sukravati, like our Amitabha realm with the pond and the swan swimming and all of that, of course. But these are relative teachings. Ultimately, we need to know that enlightenment is not just something to do with happiness. We need to know that we need to know that the path is the Buddhist path. The Dharma is not there to offer a solution to the trouble of worldly life. We need to know that the worldly life, samsara, is like piping system in India, where you can really fix it. You can sort of scotch tape it and put a paint on it and looks like it's brand new, but sooner or later it's going to leak. You have to have that kind of attitude towards so-called samsara, which involves everything, our values, our ideology, our home, our, everything. And then we also need to know what is the cause of the suffering. Cause of the suffering is basically clinging to the this idea that there is a truly existing self. Now, I need to be careful here, because recently I was using the word crushing the ego, and someone really did not like that. He said, DKR usage of this terminology, he said that it do not exist in the whole Buddhist teachings. And I heard he claims he's a Buddhist monk. Okay, maybe crushing is politically incorrect word, so I don't know. But he is right, he has some explanation here. The Buddhists believe that there is no such thing as self to begin with, so there's nothing to crush. Yeah, of course, totally agree with it. And I would just say that that's how we crush, by realizing that there is nothing to crush. But I understand, these are, how should I put it? These are precarious time. The word, the usage of the word, language that you choose. And I'm choosing a foreign language. It's not my native language. It's difficult. Have you ever, I give a lot of public teaching. I mean, not a lot, but I don't know. Some of those who have been used to my giving public teachings, I don't make notes, but now I do. Have to be very careful here. And I'm sure I've already made few mistakes already. Yes, so our goal has to go beyond self-clinging. We can't be trying to defend ego and destroy it at the same time. It's not in the nature of the Buddhist path. Even though this is what we habitually end up doing it, which is understandable. We are a sentient being, we are a defiled being, we do that. But the nature of the path is not like that. And therefore, it's really important to have it's important to have a good foundation, proper foundation of wisdom teachings. Because without understanding of the teaching of emptiness or egolessness or dependent arising, which means the same thing basically, then what will happen? If you don't have the emptiness, if you don't have the egolessness, if you don't have dependent arising, all you end up is having sort of an emotional devotion, and then you also have this so-called peace of mind. Really? You want to just have a peace of mind? Buddhism is not the best solution. It is not peace of mind. There's a lot of other things, massage parlor, good English afternoon cup of tea, English garden, oh, I like it very much. English garden, pudding, Yorkshire pudding, peace of mind immediately for me. And even an intellectual understanding of egolessness, selflessness, dependent arising help us remember what is really our target. Yes, of course we keep on forgetting, but some intellectual understanding will align us to that target. And so when we have all this sort of knowledge of egolessness, cause of the suffering and all of that, then we have quite a good backdrop of the Vajrayana teaching. And I think that's really important. So this is why I've been telling everyone, different places, it's really important to analyze the Guru. Nowhere in the Vajrayana that says without analyzing the Guru and the teaching, you jump to the path and the teacher. Nowhere. It's unfair. In fact, Vajrayana spends more time trying to explain people how they should, from the teaching point of view. But I've already said the teachers are not doing a good job. Not all teachers are doing a good job. Recently, when I was in Berlin, there's this German who asked me a question. He said, well, I've already answered his question. I don't know whether it worked, but anyway, he was saying, if there's too much secrecy with your Vajrayana master, how are we going to analyze? So totally understandable issue. It's a problem. But I have a more interesting problem I can share with you. That's a problem. I'm not saying it's not a problem, but I have another interesting problem. How many Vajrayana teachers are now giving initiations and the Vajrayana teachings to hundreds and thousands of people? You don't even know their names. Where is the analysis going? You understand what I'm saying? There is no analysis. This to me is really like very interesting, very strange, don't you think? I have already said, first of all, the Vajrayana should never be made into public. Now, if you have to make it into public, then do it, completely, from top to bottom, completely. That would at least, save a lot of time. No need to explain later. Do you know, every time you receive a tantric initiation, especially a big tantric initiations like Chakra Sambhara or Kala Chakra or He Vajra, there is so many stages where the lamas actually tell. First, they tell all this set of warning how this is dangerous. Then there's another set where also a warning, but this time telling how Tantra is so precious. You understand? There's two sets of warning. One is, this is a precarious, this is a very dangerous, this is not chewable. Are you sure? Like that. Many. All sorts of substance to drink and the malas and the vajra and all of that. Then there's another set where the Vajrayana master says, this is so precious, this is like a diamond, this is like a nectar, this is so precious, you should really keep it, are you sure you will keep it properly, are you sure, like that. There's so many warnings. These warnings, these explanations need to be explained properly. So, what is happening? Most of the time, initiations are happening symbolically. Symbolically. Thousands of people, symbolically. So if symbolically initiation is given, then it's a symbolic initiation. So you also keep the symbolic samaya, I guess. Then you also do the symbolic obedience. Symbolic total obedience. What kind of strange is that? It's not proper. And I have to say, I'm also a culprit. I've given a lot of people initiations. I don't even know their names. Most of them, I don't even know them. I have such a dyslexia, is it called? With the names and directions and stuff like this. I don't. Sometimes I give, so-called kind of a more advanced teachings to group. Wow. How much problem that creates. Who gets rejected? They bring their friends, and people not managing to keep it secret because they have to share it to their most beloved friend, so on and so forth. Not so easy, this is. And, one of the, the Buddhists always count emotions, like desire, anger, jealousy, pride, so on and so forth. I think we should add some more. One of the emotion is feeling of rejection. It's a very big emotion. And guys like me, who's not enlightened being, we end up bowing down to that kind of emotional sort of, symbols and signs and, gestures. I have heard from Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche again and again, nowadays we can only give us symbolic initiations. It's not really proper. When he's giving to lots and lots of thousands of people, when he gives initiation, this is just a symbolic. But this is something you need to make note. Sometimes he would also say, during the times of his teachings, he would say, it's all symbolic teachings. But he would point out to a one or two student quietly and tell me, this man really receives the initiation properly. How profound is this? He gives symbolically, but there's one or two usually they are not high-ranking lamas, by the way. They're usually this, very poor, like feeble practitioners who are really, really diligent practitioners who lives in the mountain. We only see them once in like 12 years. And Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche would say, so and so does actually receive initiation properly. So it also tells us that it's a really, really, individual thing. Do you want to ask a question?
So, what is meant by skillful means and crazy wisdom?
Oh, I haven't finished that one? Oh, okay. Skillful means and the wisdom, crazy wisdom. And I thought we did that. Oh, yeah, this was it this morning.
This morning we did, but before the break we stopped.
Oh, okay. I was saying, crazy wisdom, it's somehow the word crazy wisdom somehow makes you believe that there is sort of not so crazy wisdom. You understand? I don't know. Maybe I would say small dosage wisdom and the crazy wisdom. I may put it like that. If the wisdom is in its full dosage, and if it is placed in samsaric normal, again I have to be careful here whether I should say it normal world, it will be looked upon as a crazy. It's not normal. Non-duality is not normal to the normal world. Elephant does not ride mouse. It's not normal. Skillful means, by the way, skillful means have a lot of connotations. This is quite an important question. Skillful means really is very interdependent to wisdom. Higher the wisdom, more skill the person is. So why do we need a skill? For oneself, in order to mature and speed up our practice. In order to benefit sentient beings, you need to, you need skillful means so that you can take the sentient beings step by step to the ultimate teaching. Okay.
Rinpoche, you and other lamas also give tantric initiations and teachings publicly. How are we supposed to keep these kinds of samaya when we don't have any real understanding of what's happening? And secondly, given the present situation, how would you now give empowerments and pith instructions to students? And thirdly, how should young teachers and lamas give initiations and teachings from now on?
Very good. I think most of the answer I've already said earlier. But there are some interesting questions here. How should we do it in the future? I think explanation is very important. But I was saying, this is what happens. In the Tibetan and the Bhutanese sort of situation, like in the Himalayan situation, sometimes lamas give initiation as part of a ceremony of some mundane thing, like a opening of a post office or a bank. I'm serious. It's like a celebration. The motivation of initiation is not really driven by looking for enlightenment, is it? And many of the students there, especially if the lama is publicly known as a very high lama, and you are also some sort of a known person, and even though you don't necessarily have liking towards this lama, they still sit and pretend to receive, because, there's always this kind of dimension. But anyway, going back to, I think two things you can do. If the student is really serious, really, really requesting and really, really wants to follow, the teacher has the responsibility to explain everything and lead the student step by step. But if the student also wants to receive initiation for the sake of the blessing, now that happens in the symbolic initiations that I was talking. If that is the case, then you can also, the higher level of the samaya can't be involved. It really depends so much on what kind of motivation you begin with.
There seems to be a conflict between secrecy and transparency in the Vajrayana. Please comment.
I think I've said this. Did I say this morning? Or I'm forgetting now. I think the concept of transparency, first of all, I think the secrecy is not really the right word. I think confidentiality is the right word here. Because I think that secrecy has some sort of a negative connotation here. Transparency, I think I've already explained. I think it has something to do with if you are, head of the monastery that involves public funding, public situation, you are the director, non-profit organization, profit organization, whatever, then transparency is so important, so important. Like if the lama is the head of the monastery, yes, anything to do with the monastic situation, transparency is absolutely important. You can read words of my perfect teacher. If you are not transparent with the public devotees, offerings and all of that, this is one of the worst kind of karmic consequences you can go through. Now, confidentiality of Vajrayana, as I've explained, it is a personal choice. If you want to have that particular practice, then you choose to have that. As I said earlier, I've learned a lot this time, and sometimes I also am a little bit, I have a lot of I'm also puzzled a lot. On one hand, the West seems to really talk about the transparency and all of that. On the other hand, there's also a lot of conversation about the privacy Everybody is going bananas about not giving credit card and not giving what? Your thumbprint and all of this. So, do you have the right to choose this really non-dual path? This is something that you need to think about. So again, it's because of these I was talking about earlier. We need to really think about motivation, what is your goal, and what kind of a setup here, I think.
Do you agree or disagree with the following statement by Mingyur Rinpoche, published in Lion's Roar? If physical or sexual abuse has occurred, or there is financial impropriety or other breaches of ethics, it is in the best interest of the students, the community, and ultimately the teacher to address the issues. Above all, if someone is being harmed, the safety of the victim comes first. This is not a Buddhist principle. This is a basic human value and should never be violated. The appropriate response depends on the situation. In some cases, if a teacher has acted inappropriately or harmfully, but acknowledges the wrongdoing and commits to avoiding it in the future, then dealing with the matter internally may be adequate. But if there is a long-standing pattern of ethical violations, or if the abuse is extreme, or if the teacher is unwilling to take responsibility, it is appropriate to bring the behavior out into the open. In these circumstances, it is not a breach of samaya to bring painful information to light. Naming destructive behaviors is a necessary step to protect those who are being harmed or who are in danger of being harmed in the future, and to safeguard the health of the community.
Wow, this is really... Can I have that? Oh, is it this? Yeah. Is it the same? Okay. Number what? 5. Number 5? Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? First of all, okay. First of all, I think similar question has been asked, and I have been always a little bit, not so sure, because this looks like there's a lot of, loss in translation. Yes, most of it I agree. I'll have to say, most of it. But what will differ, how should I put it? I beg to differ, is this word, samaya. In these circumstances, it's not a breach of samaya to bring painful information to light. Now, this, we need to really talk a little bit. I don't know in what context he's talking about. If it is, as I have been saying again and again, consciously, after analysis, you consciously decide that this is your path, this is your teacher, this is what I'm going to follow, then I have to say, I have to defer this. It is a breach of samaya if you have consciously. Yes, before taking him as your teacher, you have all the chance to analyze, all the chance. Now, there is mention in the Tantra text that if after you analyze, after you consciously chose this person as your master, then after about a year or two, or I don't know, after a month or 2 years, then suddenly realize this man is a really strange man. The master is really not a good one at all. He's like taking you for a ride. Then what do? In that tantric text, it says you stay quietly away. You stay away. You stay away. That's the best you can do. That I have seen. Other than that, so my difference is here because the usage of the word samaya. Okay, first of all, we need to know this. Even in the Sharvaka and the Mahayana level, criticizing someone is not a really good thing. Whether it's correct or not doesn't matter. We talk about, what do you call it? Eightfold Noble Path. So there you have to be really careful. You have to really, really be careful with your motivation. What is your motivation, so on and so forth. Now in the Vajrayana, it's even more so, but I'm clarifying this. If you have taken him, and look, first of all, if you can still criticize and analyze after taking the initiation, okay, then why go through all that? Vajrayana talks about 12 years of analysis of Guru. Why go through that? You can still keep on doing the analysis and criticism afterwards. After you receive the highest initiation, you still can do it, isn't it? Then why waste time? We don't have much time, right? Number 2, let's say you are allowed to actually analyze and whatever. For how long? When your duality, as long as you have a duality, you will always find a fault to somebody. And I was saying this morning, there's only one being that we human beings don't find too much fault, and that's dogs. If you stay with a dog, you like them, more and more, and you really, you don't find fault. 2 human beings together, you will always find a fault. And then here is this person who you have asked to, handle your duality, and then you have access to analyze and criticize and also exposure and all of this. It's going to be difficult. You understand? So here I think we will need to, analyze this more. Probably there's a loss of translation. Mingyur Rinpoche is very learned, and by the way, also he belongs to the Takbokaju lineage. Takbokaju lineage. Do you know what I'm talking about? We are talking about the lineage that really cherishes the devotion to the Guru. Even in their daily prayer, they say devotion is the head of the meditation. Do you guys, some of you may be reading this, it is something this Telopa, Naropa, Marpa, Mila business, all this has come from the Takbokaju lineage. Where do you think? So this is, I think we need to sort of, I think in what context he was talking about, who asked that question, under what context. All this, I think we need to analyze. And moreover, I want to say something. This again puzzles me a little bit. Because I've been recently, because this question was asked again and before. So, in the public forum, I was sort of, people were trying to correct me, saying, but time has changed. This is a modern time. People should have the, ability and time to analyze, so on and so forth. Yes, I know. But should we really bend the Vajrayana principles just because it's a different time? Just because it's not politically correct? Should we really do that? I mean, you have to also think. This puzzles me. How West seems to be always so against cult. Cult and cult leader. If you are asking me to bend the rule of Tantric texts, you are asking me to be the cult leader. I don't know, maybe I'm being very conservative and dogmatic, you can call it, but, it's not so right to, bend the rule in the Tantric text. What if some powerful society suddenly says, well, not all compounded things are impermanent? Then what? Do we bend the rule? Oh, yeah. Things that exist in Bond Street are not impermanent. Should we do that? I think this is why I think, bottom line is this. Spiritual path, at least from the Buddhist point of view, if you are looking from a mundane point of view, mundane worldly point of view, spiritual path is the most useless. It is. Is that what you want? Then you have to follow that. It's really, really useless. Yes, I know. Meditation, mindfulness, they calm your mind, good sleep, and therefore good parenting, and therefore good house management. But then you are not talking about a spiritual path. This is what the great Sakyapa Master said. If you have an attachment to this life, you are not a Dharma practitioner. These are something important that we need to register in our head. I think we have enough, no? Do we have enough? Few more? Few more time?
Another 5 minutes.
Okay.
Your Facebook article mentioned major empowerment as the formal way to establish Samaya. But Sogyal Rinpoche rarely gave major empowerments, and many of us only received his verbal teachings and Torma initiations. Rigpa Sangha probably received major Dzogchen empowerments, mainly from masters invited to Rigpa. So when is a serious guru-disciple Samaya established? How do we decide who is our root guru, Sogyal Rinpoche or the Lama who gave us Dzogchen empowerment? And who has serious Samaya with us?
This question demonstrates what I have been telling you, lack of, knowledge. If Sogyal Rinpoche has given Dzogchen teaching, that is the highest initiation. There is no other higher initiation. Those vases that put you on your head and the things to eat and paste here, those are kindergarten initiation. Those are really, really small initiation. The real initiation is the pointing out instructions. That is the highest. And it looks like several times, I have noticed this several times from several students, this kind of question has been raised, and this made me, and it's written in my infamous 19-page article, that I have openly said I question the Sogyal Rinpoche's preparation, and if he hasn't done it, he hasn't done proper job.
In your Lara Bling talk, you defined hell as rational mind. Yet you also described the kind of devotion a student should have as rational devotion, And in your Berlin talk, you said that Vajrayana emphasizes critical thinking. Can you clarify what you meant by rational mind in terms of a hell state?
Yeah, it's a really good question, I have to say. I have to say I really appreciate many of these questions. Many of these questions should be translated into Tibetan. And it should be really put into almost like a textbook. Need to be studied. This is a good question. You know, it's like this. Vajrayana, generally all Buddhism, especially Vajrayana, is like sharpening knife. When you sharpen knife, what happens? There's a metal called knife and there's a whetstone, right? And you rub. When you rub, what happens? Whetstone burns out and the metal burns out. Voila! The sharp phenomena of sharp knife appears, which is actually byproduct of burning out of two things. Likewise, in Vajrayana, there's the path of the Vajrayana which you apply. Path, what I'm basically saying is the path also need to exhaust. Path also need to exhaust. So, how should I put this? Actually, it's not only Vajrayana, it's also in the Mahayana. We use, to be very precise, we use the rational and analytical thinking to demolish and deconstruct the very rational thinking and analytical thinking. This is the core of the Madhyamika study, especially if you are following Prasangika Madhyamika. It's a really, really important. You use a tool, but you only use it to destroy not only whatever you are trying to destroy, but also itself. So, if you don't do that, if you destroy whatever you are trying to destroy, and if you are not destroying the destroyer, that's the hell. Because if you are still keeping the solution as a souvenir, it means you also have a problem. Because solution is never a solution unless it has a problem. These are very profound point of the Vajrayana. I'm not explaining this very well today. I don't know, somehow, right? But okay, how is it being done? I will give you an example. Have you heard about the Tantric practice of Upanikrama and Sampanikrama, where you have the extensive practice of visualizing yourself as a deity? Yeah? 6 arms, 1,000 arms, all of that. And even when you visualize, you are sitting on the lotus. Have you ever thought about that? Why lotus never gets squished even though you are sitting on it? Have you ever thought about this? This is the non-duality already happening. And what happens? After our extensive visualization practice, you dissolve whatever the deity you are doing. Okay, our touchy subject, Guru, the Guru Yoga. Show me one Guru Yoga where you do not dissolve Guru into you or you into him and he or she and you become inseparable. If you find one, I will miss another match. I'm going to miss a lot of match if you... There is none. The whole quintessential practice of the Guru Yoga is to Palden Lami Kobang Yurtopsho. This is the prayer. Palden Lami Kobang Yurtopsho. May I reach the state of the Guru. This is a kind really. But bear in mind, please, with all this sounding, please, never think that I'm not saying there is this ambitious, not well trained, vicious, selfish gurus. Either they are self-proclaimed or they are, also recognized properly. Doesn't matter. Abuse, take advantage of people sexually, physically, financially, emotionally. Yes, it exists. You should not be naive that all this Tibetan lamas, endangered species, that they are all like holy beings. No. They are, really, and we cannot defend them. We have to expose them for the sake of the Buddha Dharma and for the sake of the Vajrayana. But I'm also talking about Vajrayana principle. In the Vajrayana principle, there is a principle of something called pure perception, which we will be talking tomorrow. Okay. Thank you. I'm coming.
So please remember to take...
Yes, please. Should I go? I want to listen.
So for us to remember, please to take our belongings with us when we leave now. And also, as we may have heard, this evening there's an optional extra for us. At 7:30 we can go to see Rinpoche's new film,